Hello everyone and welcome back to the World Championship Series Premier League. We're in the round of 32 in Group B where we just saw Tudeming 2-1 Stardust. And welcome back to the analyst area. Huck, was that a result that was surprising to you at all?
Not really. The games played out differently than what I expected, but the result was the same. I feel like Tudeming is the second favorite in this group.
Well, just looking at those two players, when you look at the results, it is surprising in the sense that Stardust was a previous WCS champion. He has a DreamHack title under his belt, and Tudeming also has some titles under his belt, but they were all from China, so don't you think that experience should have played more of a bigger factor for Stardust in that series?
Not necessarily. I mean, speaking from personal experience, I'm a multi-champion player, but now I can't even get into Premier. So at the same time, I understand it. It's about your current form. And right now, as you've highlighted in the past, Tudeming's in really good condition. He's been playing very well. And Stardust, on the other hand, hasn't been attending events. And then on top of that, he's kind of out of shape a little bit. He says it himself. So it's not surprising at all. I feel like Stardust Game 2 showed that great form, but in Game 1 and 3, he definitely showed that he's a little shaky.
Well, we just talked about Tudeming and how you think that, you know, it's not a surprise that he did so well. On the flip side, what do you think that Stardust needs to work on if he really wants to make it out of this group?
He needs to relax, calm down, play his game. I mean, that's what you always want to do as a player, stay as calm as possible. At the same time, he needs to really focus on... I feel like his strong suit is reactionary play. In Game 2, he showed a lot of patience. He reacted to what his opponent was doing. He stayed calm. And in Game 1 and 3, he kind of forced the issue a little bit. He didn't really adapt like he normally does. And I feel like when he adapts and he just plays by the particular situation at the time, that's when he does really well.
Well, based off of Game 1 with Tudeming winning, he'll be playing the winner of our second match of the day. It'll be between ForGG and Sen. Now, ForGG and Sen, these guys have been around for absolutely forever. As you yourself mentioned earlier, these guys are kind of the older group in this in the round of 32. Let's start with Sen. He's a guy that has been around since the absolute beginning of StarCraft 2, but he hasn't reached the top 16 in almost 2 years now.
Yeah, he's done decently in a lot of the Taiwanese events. I think the last one he beat was in Hyun, but it was like 2014.
Yes.
Where he won, I think it was 10K or something. So it was a pretty good event, but all in all, it was a lot of Zerg players that he went through, not necessarily Terran. And ForGG is definitely one of the stronger Terran players, especially in Europe and North America in these WCS groups. So it'll be hard to say, but Sen, I mean, he has to start planning for his retirement. He has to start saving up, you know, because sooner or later he's going to have to hit that retirement home, and he needs a plan.
Oh my god, that was so harsh. Well, Sen is going up against ForGG, as you said, is a very, very strong player. He's reached the top 8 the last 3 times in WCS. However, he's only been able to reach the top 4. He hasn't been able to actually secure a title under his belt. So a player like him who has done so well in Premier League for such a long time, do you think that he's even worried about this group, or is he just looking far ahead?
Of course not. I feel like he knows he's going to make it out of this group, and that's going to play into the fact that he's going to be, you know, supremely confident. And it's not, you know, he's looking at this, he's like, oh, it's cool, I get to go to Cali, get to spend a little time, and I'm going to make it out, and I'll see you guys in Toronto. And, you know, that confidence is going to help him just play through it. He's not nervous. He's not playing against Hydra. He's not playing against Pult. He's not playing against, you know, some of these top Europeans like Snoot or Bunny. So I feel like he's pretty confident in this matchup.
All right, well, thank you very much, Huck. I'm about ready to watch this series. I'm sure you guys are as well. So let's head over to our casters in Nathanius and Greensburg.
Thank you very much, Smix. I think it goes without saying, anybody that's watched any tournament where I've been with ForGG, I'm a huge ForGG fanboy. I'm very excited for this match. Are you?
You know what? You are single-handedly contributing to a lot of the hype around ForGG. I think a lot of people wouldn't know how good actually this guy is until they see you wrecking on ladder with all of his builds, man.
Hey, man.
He's a sicko.
You know, you only have to watch one of ForGG's tournament runs, and then you start making Hellions and Banshees. You don't stop, and the next thing you know, you're just waiting on another Cloak Banshee push fix, man. It's tough.
I mean, Nate, you are the Cinderella story. Just branching off a little bit, because you were Bronze League, right? Starting up in StarCraft.
Then I switched to Terran,
and then you switched to Terran. You started watching ForGG, and then you became Grandmaster. Wow.
He streams more than almost any competitive player in the entire StarCraft 2 scene. He is one of the easiest guys to study, but that has not really hindered him because he just plays so solid.
Yeah, I mean, his aggressive style has been something to be terrified about in his Terran versus Zerg. That's what he's playing today right here against Sen, who's been considered kind of the macro style. You know, he's always been known as the droner. He just gets drones, tries to overmass, tries to get a lot more units than you. It's going to be hard to do that against ForGG styles.
Yeah.
And, you know, I've actually studied a ton of ForGG's replays, and I'm not going to lie, I kind of feel like, you know, a lot of the other guys have looked at him a lot. We had a dinner yesterday with, it was Sen, Kane, Petraeus, Bunny, basically all the guys from yesterday. And we talked a little bit about ForGG and some of the things that, you know, Kane would do against ForGG to kind of stop him in his tracks.
Yeah, well, I mean, the things that ForGG loses to are oftentimes like weird stuff where he overcommits, right? So if Sen decides to play a greedy style, and looking at these maps, I think, you know, Expedition Lost should be one of the ones that he really needs to take, because Vani Research Station is a really good ForGG map because he can play mech very, very well, especially with all the strong mech players that have come out of Europe since he lives and practices there. And then Coda, I think, is similarly good for Terran with those styles against Zerg.
And it's important to note the training styles. I mean, Sen has been in a lot of Taiwanese tournaments. We always talk about how these guys compartmentalize themselves. ForGG does not. He knows all the styles. Korean styles, European styles, NA styles. The guy is constantly moving around, trying to test his skills and see whether or not he can discriminate himself against everybody. Guess what? He can. He's either from top 2 to top 6. It kind of ranges based on, obviously, this tournament that happens right here. Also, DreamHack just happened. But he is one of the best in the world right now. If it stopped right now, he would be seeded into the top 16 World Finals.
Now, ForGG had a really good run in last season of WCS before being stopped in what I consider to be a slight surprise in a TVT against Pult, someone that he had dominated in this matchup last year. But looking at the Terran versus Zerg, it's a bit more interesting because ForGG's style hasn't really switched up too much, and I wanted to play off some, you know, his biggest results in this matchup were obviously when he defeated Life at DreamHack Winter last year, but even that, like, it only dawned on me just today. I was like, man, that really was actually quite some time ago, and the meta shifts around quite a bit. But that's the thing about ForGG. He doesn't really change his builds up too much. He likes his Hellion Banshee. Sometimes the Banshee Hellbat push, he'll throw in an Armory. And the way that he tunes his builds allows him to quickly recover if he doesn't deal game-winning damage against the natural counters to his own builds. Like, he'll swap and play one Factory Thor and one Starport Viking as a reaction if he knows that that's a possible threat for Mutalisks as a counter from Zerg.
Yeah, I mean, he's so scary with his changeup, honestly. Like, it's just so variable. And the things that are ordinarily defended very easily, as you were talking about the Hellion Banshee, he just finds ways of innovating them. And they're very small adjustments, but, you know, his Hellions do just a little bit more damage, and his Banshees are a little bit more nimble. They can go in and out. He can go for drones. He can go for the kill. I mean, it's really scary to think you have to defend so many areas at the same time, and that's why a lot of times people just overcommit, and he can just play macro from there. So it's kind of crazy what this guy is capable of. Whereas Sen, okay, I really feel like a lot of people are counting Sen out, and they're sticking him on like bottom 2 of this division. And I have to say, if you look at the rankings right now for WCS, he's actually second in this group, around the 60s area. Again, it's variable right now. But, you know, both Tudeming and Stardust are hovering around the rank 100s, whereas it's, of course, ForGG, yeah. I think he's ranked 6, and then 63 for Sen. So Sen is the one that probably is most experienced right now with WCS point tournaments. He is the one that's ready for group stages. He's the one that's ready for these prepared matchups as well. They've all been around the scene for a long time. They're all vets. They know how to hard counter each other.
Yeah, Sen does have that, you know, that nice comfort in this group of being the one guy aside from ForGG to have been in Premier League last season, even though he dropped out pretty early. When I think about Sen's play, it against ForGG has to be reactive. Like, if ForGG decides to go mech or bio, those are two very distinct things, and we saw even Bunny abuse that against Petraeus in their series yesterday, where Petraeus wasn't sure, do I need to open up with Roach upgrades or do I need to open up with Zergling upgrades? And then switching between them in the mid-game stage really makes you vulnerable because you have to commit to what your opponent is playing for if you want to have a good chance at being able to stop it.
And it's funny, too. Petraeus, from yesterday was actually telling Sen ways of stopping different pushes in the early game stage and really unique ways of stopping it. You know, there's the ordinary, you just take your 3 bases. Kane was telling him, oh, just go mass queens. That'll be able to stop everything.
Kane does like his queens.
He does.
And another interesting point to bring up by that is, it's funny because Petraeus would have some of the best advice to offer, considering that him and ForGG probably play more games on European ladder than anybody else.
And Petraeus was saying, no, you don't have to do that. Just go 2 base, still get a fast 3rd base, don't drone it up, get Zergling Baneling, 9-minute mutas. We actually saw that on Vani Research Station. It's a really cool thing to do. But nevertheless, we are getting into game number 1 between Sen and ForGG. In the bottom middle position as the red Terran, it is Millennium's ForGG.
Based ForGG going up against the blue Zerg up in the north. We have representing Hong Kong Attitude. He is Sen.
So one thing I told Sen actually before this, because he was asking me like about ForGG. We're actually good friends. We've known each other for, God, I think like 7 or 8 years now, and we've always kept in contact. One thing about ForGG style is he likes to go like ordinarily 7 barracks before his 2nd factory. I know this is like super far in advance, but a lot of times people alter their style because there's just so many more Marines than there are like Widow Mines. And one way that you can combat the ForGG style of, you know, heavy aggression is to get actually less Banelings and just more stuff, more Zerglings, and just make sure your Banelings always connect.
Yeah, it's so tricky because ForGG can play that bio style so well at the same pace with his mech. And you know, when I think about his Terran versus Zerg in this matchup on this map, the first thing that comes to mind was the long drawn-out game that he had against Firecake on this map, where he basically got cornered into his own base, and that's not even possible anymore since the patch to the Swarm Host. ForGG is going to be in a better position to take cost-effective fights since he won't be fighting, you know, against endless wave after wave of Locusts pushing into him, trading resources out. But Sen has chosen already this game to play a little bit more cautiously. He opened up with the spawning pool. It's not fast enough to put pressure on. The way this map is designed doesn't allow for you to put fast pressure on with quicklings anyway, because you have such a small ramp to cover. And ForGG, in this position, it doesn't have too much to worry about.
Yeah, even look at the Overlord coverage too. It's kind of a weird scouting pattern that we've seen so far. One's going down to the command center, the natural command center, and the other one's kind of just looking for proxies. And based on the build, he is just defending against proxies, right?
Yeah, I mean, ForGG is not one to shy away from 2 racks. You know, he not only has a unique way of how he likes to play with his Hellion Banshee or his heavy Marine play if he goes bio, but he's, you know, he'll cheese you just as readily as the next Korean Terran player that you'd go up against. So Sen's hatchery was on the way. The one thing, of course, the big benefit from this fast pool, not just the Zerglings, but having the Queens out earlier will make it easier to defend drones from being picked off by the Reaper in the early phase of the game.
Oh, nice little micro here. Sen trying to get away and split up his Zerglings, but ForGG won't have any of that. Kills and dispatches of these 2 Zerglings. Their eyes on the map. I love what you said, by the way, with also getting the creeps spread out. Vani Research Station does have a little bit of trouble taking that 3rd base sometimes. With 2 or 3 Reapers, you can have constant pressure in the early game stage.
If you build momentum, it gets very tricky.
And a lot of times you can just, as Terran, you can cut off the creep tumors at the ramp right here and stop the 3rd from going up for a while.
This main ramp position is actually so crucial when you look at pushes like the Hellbat Banshee one that I almost expect to see ForGG do at some point in this series. Because if you get your Hellbat situated there and there's no Banelings, no amount of Zerglings will ever kill Hellbats in a choke point like that. And already, ForGG being very aggressive with his Reapers. Like, this is a scenario where they shouldn't be able to escape, but he's trading them out for a lot of drone kills so far.
Oh man, this is brutal. And there is a Queen that's just going to pop out here and try to do damage and kill one of these. The other 2 Queens are popping on down here. Now, this is a pretty big win here for Sen too, but at what cost so far? How many drones, Nate?
4 drones for 2 Reapers and a modicum of information. He got to see that this extractor finished in the natural expansion. He didn't see one of the geysers, I believe, in the main. He saw only the left one, so he can't be 100% sure that there was no guess on the right side, but maybe the faster 3rd Queen could be a tell.
It weakens the power to deny 3rd bases, but you know, you're getting good trades, you're getting a 3rd base. This is actually kind of weird, I would say, for ForGG. Not that, okay.
Yeah, I am surprised that he so callously threw away the first 3 Reapers. Like, he got a good amount of drone kills, but if he doesn't get those 4 drones, it's a massive mistake. But that's kind of how ForGG rolls. You know, he's the kind of guy to gamble his Hellions, even his first 2. Like, if he ran these in, I think it'd be a really crazy, almost bad move, but it wouldn't be unexpected from ForGG to try and squeeze these in to grab a few drone kills.
Hey, man, he's the type of guy that just has no remorse for any of his actions. He goes with it. He goes full-fledged with it, too. And that's what's really cool about him. It's what's so terrifying about him, too.
He's going to go bio this game, by the way. Stim is on the way, Greed Torp, so we may see that very heavy racks play before a second factory comes into the swing of things. And the scary part is that Sen needs to confirm this. His Overlord goes into the main base, and he does, in fact, see that Tech Lab on the barracks, so he should have an idea. Okay, I'm going to be playing versus Bile. This is nice, because it tells him I can get Ling upgrades, I can get a Baneling nest early, I don't have to worry about a crazy commitment of Banshees, especially.
Man, this is what I'm talking about. He's able to do extra damage onto these queens. Almost loses one, but a good transfuse will keep 3 queens alive there. Sen kind of scouts by, I would say, process of elimination. He doesn't see a lot of barracks being thrown down over here. So I think he assumes a lot of the time that it is going to be the fast 3 CCs. But this should be a little bit scary.
Yeah, this is what ForGG does. There's no Zergling speed yet, but the Zerglings at least block the ramp. And ForGG's ready to push in. He's like, I know these Hellions aren't going to be a core part of my army composition. I don't plan to do a Hellbat push, so I just want to trade these out as best as I can for drones. He's picked out 5 drones, whoop, up to 8 now, and this is just what he does. He always finds a way to make these Hellions do something.
Yeah, finally getting in here. 3 is the magic number to start one-shotting these drones, and Sen is kind of not paying attention right now.
Oh, the reaction time a little bit slow now. And this choke, the Lings especially, takes so long to actually get surface area to kill this Hellion. So 14 drones killed.
Brutal.
And without a Baneling nest, there's no opportunity for Sen to counterattack, period.
What's nice about this, ForGG is able to make these calls. Like, a lot of times it seems very random, like, oh, you're just flipping a coin. But no, ForGG actually saw the gas timing from the very early stages and said, you will not have metabolic boost at a really fast time. That means you're relying on queens a lot more. I'm going to put pressure on your queens in the beginning, try to force them out in the front, and I see 3 queens. Okay, I'm going to dart for that ramp and try to get damage.
And you already talked about how Sen's style, he likes to crank out the drones when he can and be a little on the greedy side. Well, ForGG's style, in my opinion, perfectly counters that. It's something that makes it it's very difficult to be greedy against ForGG because he's so aggressive. If he sees that opportunity, he will punish you. You won't get away with it.
And, I mean, we saw that very thing happen right here. I like this 4th base, by the way, from Sen. It's a very, very quick 4th base. It's in response to the very quick 3rd base that we see from ForGG. Now, there's like a range of when this 3rd can come down. Ordinarily, it's coming down from anywhere from 8:30 to like 10 minutes. And ForGG opted to have a much, much later one.
Yeah,
so
you don't want to go past 10 minutes. That's like the worst case scenario.
Yeah. It's safer. He's actually staying super safe. I think it's because he actually traded out his Hellions at the beginning stage.
Yeah, it's really risky because if there is a Baneling nest that he didn't see and you move down, you can just instantly lose the game. Like as a Terran, you're most vulnerable right now when you're finishing all these add-ons. And you mentioned a Greed Torp, he's going for heavy racks play. He has 8 barracks right now. Only that 1 factory, that 1 starport, so he's relying on mostly Marines. He has already mixed in a few tech labs, so he can go for Marauders to help soak up damage as well. But it's not a priority for him since we're not anywhere close to the late game stage yet.
So this empowers Zerglings a lot of the times. Whenever you're doing this low Widowmine count, you're not able to keep up with just mass units. Yes, you have mass units for yourself, but Zerg can always outmass. Double medevac drops. 14 Marines are actually coming into the natural. It will be spotted out, but does that Sen actually have the material to deal with this? Zerglings are on the other side. Now finally Zerglings sprinting across over to the natural base. Will he get there in time? This is really close.
Now ForGG is going to try to unload, and you know what? Without Banelings here, these Marines all backed up against one another. Both sides have 1-1 upgrades, but the Queens are targeting down the medevacs. The Marines have cleaned up the Lings, and there he's forced to use the energy to transfuse. These Marines are still getting a lot of work done. He would like to kill a few of these Queens. Oh, medevac barely escapes.
Wow. Wow, very, very close.
That's crucial.
6 hit points, 1 more shot would have been able to kill that.
Yeah, that you know, you lose that medevac, and that goes from being nice moves to a bit overeager from ForGG. And now he comes up, Tim's like, what, this Overlord? No map vision for you.
Still, Sen's looking in a pretty decent position. It is 82 harvesters right now to 67. We can see just mass units coming out of Sen. The first attack is approaching as well, and Banelings are starting. He hasn't actually teched over to Mutus just yet. Spire almost finished.
That's what I wanted to point out. The faster fourth base, as nice as it is, does mean his tech was super delayed. His Baneling speed is very close to finishing, but it's not ready yet. You can't try to engage this army without Baneling speed. He could just pull back. It's very easy, yeah.
Pick up,
without Mutalisks, yeah, he's getting the medevacs. It's like, well, okay, you can't kill me. Also, keep in mind, he hasn't started his +2 upgrades either, so in about 100 seconds, ForGG, he's going to have his 2/2 upgrades, and that's when Marines slaughter Zerglings.
Yeah, I mean, this is looking scary, although, I mean, Sen's been pretty good with creep so far. He just needs to keep up with his army, get good position. He cannot be cluttered up coming in from the same area, and that's, of course, a very hard thing to do. But now Sen's going to try to push the envelope here. And no, he's not going to push way too far.
In this position, the Terran wants Marauders up front and then just kite the Marines back. The Zerglings are trying to soak up and surround. He actually gets a very nice surround, baiting those Widowmine shots. And otherwise, very scary push from ForGG gets cleaned up, and this should make defending follow-ups much easier. He's going to at the same time try to do another drop during all of this, but the Mutas are coming in, and if ForGG loses these medevacs, he loses a lot of his pushing power. Oh, the Mutas kill all of them.
This is actually a really good position. The drop is going to be cleaned up pretty easily as well, so both fronts, Sen is taking a decisive advantage here in game number 1.
Yeah, this is a really, really nice hold of this push by Sen, and ForGG overextending it, but getting his Marines caught like that was potentially game-losing move. Sen wants to continue to push back. ForGG, if he gets backed up into his production, this becomes a moment where Sen, with those 4 bases, can flood out enough units to just overwhelm him and even fight Marines with Mutalisks.
And Nate, remember, this is when ForGG is supposed to take map control and also supposed to take creep spread control.
You're supposed to deny a 4th base with a push like that.
This is 2-2 against 1-1. This is the perfect scenario for ForGG. It's just he doesn't have enough AoE to deal with all the mass units there is. It doesn't matter if you can split like a god if you just don't have enough units to deal with the endless waves of Zerglings and Banelings. And look at that, 172 supply to 124. ForGG does need a really good engagement.
ForGG moving out onto the map when he's down this much in the supply. Oh, those Widow Mines. Oh, they're going to burrow? He does.
Oh, wow.
Okay, gets a couple decent shots off. That was still a very late reaction to his walking into his opponent's army, pretty much, as these Banelings do continue to push the Marines up. He actually kills a nice number of the Mutas in the midst of all of this, I will say that.
Okay.
But he's lost all of his bio again.
And I don't think there's a 4th command center either, which makes it a lot harder to actually continue on here. Now Banelings going into the 3rd base will blow up this bunker. Nice splits from the SCVs. It looks like he's not able to get the damage done. He's going to back up from here.
ForGG does have a 4th base on the way. He's building it in his natural expansion, so not the common place to put it down. But look at all the other things that this gives Sen. The one thing that still surprises me now is that he somehow managed to catch up in the 2-2 during all of that. But he's got his Hive. Adrenal Glands is on the way. He's starting up his 3-3. He's got his Mutalisk Carapace coming in. Everything from Sen just looks cash money right now, and all he needs to do is stop ForGG from planting this 4th down. The pressure is no longer, in my opinion, on ForGG to actually do damage to Sen. He needs to buy time and distract him so he can get his 4th base up.
A lot of times this is when you see mass drops happening, but Vani Research Station, it's only good to drop when you actually have center control, when you have the kind of the Zerg army positioned in a certain way. Doing it just blindly and cold like this, there's overlords scattered all over the place. It's very hard to make your drops make sense and do damage, and that's why he's holding back off for now until he gets higher supply. Once he has a higher supply, he's going to push out, try to do some work, and then he has the drops to couple with that.
These Marines coming out to clean up creep are doing a lot more than just that. He's pulling the army to the west side of the map. He wants to buy time. He needs to get that planetary fortress up. His Widow Mines are spread defensively on top of this ramp. ForGG knows that playing 4 base versus 4 base is doable despite the bad trades he's had if he can max out. But if this 4th base gets knocked down in a counterattack, the game's close to over. Sen is just going to explode in economy on top of him.
And he's hoping to have trades off of creep. That's exactly what he wants. Here we go. Sen is actually pushing in. This is a lot of stuff, though, Nate.
Yeah, I mean, he's trying to get in from the left side. The reinforcements are actually caught off guard here. He kills most of the Banelings, but the Mutas still stand strong. Widowmine gets a nice juicy shot off, though, and Sen trades a lot of resources without actually killing that 4th. ForGG has the cash money to keep producing these forces because he's got that gold base.
Oh, yeah, that's exactly what ForGG wanted. One of those engagements to actually get him back in like the supply. He wants to even that out as much as possible, but it still isn't looking the best. 4 Ultralisk on the way. Chitinous plating is started. 3-3 is almost finished, but this is the timing ForGG needs to take when he has 3-3 over his opponent's 2-2.
It's a very small window, much smaller than the average Terran versus Zerg that you would be watching. The army is caught off guard a little bit. This Thor trying to hit the Mutalisk at the same time. The mines clean up a lot of the Zerglings, but at this point, he's just shrinking the army enough so that when the Ultralisks come out and he hits with this next wave, ForGG will have a much more difficult time stopping him as the Mutas getting a few hits on those medevacs.
Yeah, it needs to be very careful. Ordinarily, trades are better for Terran in TVZ overall because the trades mean that the Banelings are going to be siphoned out for units like the Ultras. But now that the Ultras are already here at HiveTech, it gets very, very scary. Now trades become a liability for Terran. They don't want to lose everything, or they don't want to trade equally just because the Ultras, once they pop up again, you know, Terran works in a scaling way where they need a ton of units slowly and slowly and slowly to push out. But you know, Zerg can just inject everything out at once, and then boom, they have a timing. So this is scary.
And Sen's maxed, so now is the only thing he's really waiting for are these Banelings to finish and his Chitinous plating, and he's going to push in with the Ultras. Are there enough Marauders to actually kill most of this off? This is a pretty good spread, pretty good defensive position. Cleans up a lot of the Zerglings of Sen in that move.
Yeah, I think trying to push on the 4th base is a little bit scary here.
Really nice, actually catches a lot of these Banelings off guard, and it's actually really nice to be able to fight these away from the army. Off creep, but there's a really good spread. Sen actually coming from the south side too. Everything is completely surrounded by the Zerg army.
Wow.
ForGG on the run.
Thor will go down. It looks like there's just not enough stuff for Marauders to this army, so the Ultras can start doing a lot of damage, but reinforcements will come in. Banelings, will they be able to connect to the Marines? Not quite.
He's trying to hide behind the mineral line, get somewhere the Ultralisks cannot hit him. He needs to repair that planetary fortress as well. Ultras coming in, chomping everything down. He needs to target with the Marauders and the Thors on the Ultralisks, but it's not going to work. 4th base is gone. ForGG, he's broke.
Yeah, it's a really nice sieging unit that, well, not really sieging unit, but enough damage. Ultralisk will clean up, and Sen takes game number 1. A very surprising start to the series for a lot of people.
Yeah, ForGG had as good of a start as you can really ask for.
Yes.
Even though he lost the 2 Reapers, he got 4 drone kills, then he killed 14 more drones with the Hellions. The best move that Sen made in this game was securing the 4th base fast enough to have that creep spread there to buy him time, because even though Sen's tech was super late in this game, this defensive, this push, when he gets the surround with the Zerglings on the Marines, and he doesn't pick up in the medevacs because the Mutas aren't actually here yet. If he picks up in the medevacs right now, he can salvage, but the mines detonate and kill everything. He saves, what, 5 Marines and 2 Marauders? It's not enough. If he's able to drop another 20 Marines down with this push, I think he has enough firepower to blow through this and actually get some work done, because look how few Banelings there are. The Marauders soak up all of these. If he has a dozen more Marines behind this, he can actually kill the Mutalisks.
Yeah, a lot of the momentum comes from this stage, anywhere from the 11 to 14-minute timing of Terran versus Zerg. That's when Terran needs to make sure they have the most efficient trades. If it gets cleaned up like this and Zerg gets just a couple minutes to sit and start situating their position, oh my goodness, does it get out of control very fast. And that's what we saw. Sen have a big turnaround from 11 minutes to 14 minutes, shut down the double medevac drop, was able to shut down the front pressure, and then just maintain the pressure from there on in. And when you give the Zerg the ability to make whatever composition they want, they're going to make always the best one. You want them to overmaking Banelings, overmake the things that are not scary, like Ultras, like Broodlords and things like that.
Yeah, it's Terran vs. Zerg gets very interesting in that way, that most of the time it's about, in my opinion, killing the 4th base of the Zerg player. You want to put all the damage in there, and the 16 Marine drop that he did, even having those extra forces for that 4th base push might have helped him more, since there wasn't Baneling speed throughout the majority of that early push. It was only at the very end that it completed. ForGG just needs to be a bit more cautious with his actual push-outs. I don't think there were too many, you know, macro mistakes. He didn't get supply blocked to any big degree that I could see, and he actually got the 4th base up at a reasonable enough time to have at least 1 or 2 more engagements, but you know, he needed those to be miracle engagements, and they just weren't.
A lot of times they will be too. I mean, with 4GG splits, off creep, like the components were there for him to make it like right.
Yeah. He got several engagements off creep, and that should be all you need as a Terran.
But also, just think of that rally point. Another big problem of Terran is, you know, when you have like 10 or 12 barracks, 2 factories producing
Yeah, it
stuff.
takes a while for those forces to get over there. Even if it looks like he's maxed out on the observer panel, a lot of that supply can be tied up in the production.
Exactly. Like 30 supply is over just in production. They're not doing anything. So you're really fighting with 170 supply type of army, or 170 out of 200. It gets a little tricky.
Yeah, it's a pretty interesting scenario now as Sen finds himself 1 game away from actually playing against Tude Ming in the winners match.
That would be crazy, right? Who would expect a double Korean in the losers bracket?
Yeah, that means one of them would have to be eliminated from Premier this season already. Well, let's find out. We're loaded in to Expedition Lost for map number 2. I think a pretty decent map for Zerg in the bottom left position. We have the red Terran player from Team Millennium. He's ForGG.
And in the top right-hand position as the blue Zerg, the Hong Kong Attitude player, it is Sen.
And this was Sen's map pick. You know, this is a map where those rocks and the rocks in the center of the map that you can knock down make moving around with a slow army very difficult. And for that reason alone, I would be blown away if ForGG was to try mech on this map. Hellion Banshee, maybe Hellion Banshee with Hellbats if he really wants to, but at some point, I feel like he's going to be forced into going back to Marine Marauder.
Do you like this map for TVZ? Do you think it's good or bad? What's your thoughts?
I mean, playing against Zerg on this map, the biggest difficulties that you're going to deal with when you're playing Bio is the Zerg's potential to take the 4th base in the top left side of the map. Usually it's hard to get creep spread by that watchtower, which is the only vulnerability of it. And then for that reason alone, some Zergs will take the base to the horizontal of their natural as the 3rd, and then they'll take the 4th base by the rocks just because they can have the creep spread there. But pushing on the map gets very tricky because there's so many choke points. It can be really difficult to spread your Marines out.
Yeah.
And the counterattack opportunities are phenomenal because you have those back rocks. You always have to keep your eyes open for them. And the airspace by the natural is also really good. And your potential 4th outside of the rocks for Mutalisks to harass.
Yeah, I think there are 2 major ways to play this map for Zerg. I think it's either the heavy counterattacking style or just all-out aggression. But you can't play that standard macro style that we saw on Vani Research Station, where you just try to tech up and give the Terran all the room to really bring on the hurt, because this is the type of map where you can, instead of doing like the super aggressive as Terran, you can kind of like siege the 4th base and put on never-ending pressure, and that gets a little bit out of hand very fast. Yeah. But as for what's actually going on so far, it looks like we're seeing a very ordinary opening from both these players. Of course, we can see hatch pool, a 15 hatch into pool. No early gas, though, coming out from Sen, which makes sense, too. On this map, Reapers aren't as good as other maps.
Yeah, the thing is, when you're rallying across the map for a big bio push on this map, any direction that you would push to attack like either 4th base of the Zerg player will leave one of your other bases open to a handful of Banelings busting down 1 or 2 depots and a flood of Lings coming in. And that's what makes this map more difficult, because if you look at Vani Research Station, if you're rallying out for a 3-base push that ForGG did, all of his forces are coming out. His natural is in a pocket. His 3rd base is down the ramp of his main, so everything runs by the 3rd. If you try to counterattack ForGG on that map, it's much more difficult. This map opens things up for Sen, especially considering how he played with a mass unit style, not so much a heavy tech style.
And I think mass unit styles in general are better just because you need the kind of the expendable units to be able to go out on the map and do those counterattacks.
Yeah.
So if anything, this really features a good map for Sen overall. Does lose a drone here, which is a little bit sloppy from Sen.
Yeah, ForGG's opening was on the interesting side, to say the least. He goes for the quick Reaper, but also sets himself up to get a couple of Marines out as this factory finishes up. And the Marines here, since he's queued up another 2, if he doesn't, he's not probably going to cancel these. So with this, he could be thinking about going for one of those fast drop plays. And players like Bunny have been using these to the max in a lot of their Terran versus Zergs as of late. We didn't see him use it against Betrayus, probably because Betrayus has seen him do it so many times in offline tournaments already. He could go Banshee with it, but with only 1 gas, he won't have as much power going for Cloak. So he just queues up more Marines. I'm expecting an Armory to get thrown down when he has the gas for it, then do one of those Hellion Marine frontal assaults.
Yep. I think it's obviously very powerful. A lot of times, this, as you said, is kind of merged with the drops. So obviously you can do a Hellion drop, or you can do just a frontal assault with those Hellbats. And I think Sen is doing exactly what Kane told Kane told him to do yesterday. which is actually just defend up, make sure your opponent does nothing. They were talking a little bit whether Mask Queen or Roaches, either of them work, and Sen was like, I think I like Roaches a little bit better.
Yeah, this is pretty interesting because the only gas that he has can go into Roaches. He doesn't have Zergling speed. There is no Baneling Nest. He has not yet started a lair. He's just started Ling speed. That won't be a factor by the time that this comes into play. So really, he needs to recognize that it's coming and get Roaches out. But he doesn't actually have any map vision anymore at this point. There's nothing in the center of the map that will see this push coming until he hits the creep. And if he were to elevate it into the back, the Overlord should see him, but still, he doesn't have that much time to react.
The Armory is still a little bit of ways here. Oh, he's just going to wait until he has like 6 or 8, it looks like.
Yeah, I mean, he can rally Hellions. Like, the Hellions can still
fast,
be useful. Yeah. You know, I still don't think regular Hellions are bad. This was a push that was really popular without the Armory for quite some time. Just a regular 8 Marine, big Hellion push, and sometimes you would drop the Marines in one base and run the Hellions by in another. But once they turn into Hellbats with the Marines to pepper the Roaches as well, they can actually fight against pushes like this.
Yes, they can. Sen's going to back up. He almost loses one of the Roaches, but he can easily transfuse it pretty soon here. There it goes. He needs to go ahead and target the Hellbats before he actually gets to the meat of the army. But this is a lot of Roaches so far, man. This can actually kill the Terran army pretty fast. The Hellbats are getting taken out pretty easily. Zerglings will go up to tank a little bit and give more space to those Roaches. Roaches are giving a little bit of chase here.
And ForGG is sweating a little bit here. He's already switching into Cloak Banshees as a follow-up. This is very rare when you're in this position. He's delaying his 3rd command center astronomically, and you cannot really win as Terran on 2 base versus Zerg without going for an all-in. He doesn't have the production to do that. He's still building SCVs, so I imagine he's going to play an absurdly slow mech game, and there's the +1 attack starting up on the Armory.
You know, a lot of times when you do a build like this with the Marines and the drop and the Hellions, you don't expect ever Banshees to come in because it's like, well, that's your big attack. You're done. But no, Sen is ForGG is the type of guy to just kind of switch it up because Spore Crawlers are never made in this position.
That's true. And now with a couple of Marines and the Reaper to complement this Banshee, he can kill an absurd number of drones back into the base. He can even use the Marines to deny the Spore Crawler if he really wanted to, help kill the Queen faster. And I think he will be able to kill this Queen while he drops in the natural. So he's really forcing him to commit here. And the Banshee sees there's a lot of Roaches, there's Banelings on the way. These Hellbats, if he spreads these out and keeps just enough of them alive to clean up the Lings afterwards, the Banshee can deal with the Roaches. And this is a very, very tense moment because ForGG will also be supply blocked into oblivion once these depots are down. He can't build any more units after this.
That's right. It's going to be a little bit tough. Okay, the Banelings need to get a little bit of damage onto the Hellbats, and they do a lot of damage, but is it going to be enough?
He has enough Hellbats left over to clean up the Lings. That's all he needs. The Banshee will kill the Roaches in due time. The Roaches don't attack fast enough, and he's even pulled the SCVs already just to make sure that he cleans this up. With the Lings being gone and now 2 Banshees, these Roaches won't end the game. We have a very late lair starting up, and ForGG still managed to deal a reasonable bit of damage to the Lings. I will say, I don't have the utmost confidence in ForGG's build right now because he has no 3rd command center.
Yeah, no 3rd command center, and if you look, the income tab, 55 harvesters to 40, so Sen is actually way ahead in economy. But those extra Banshees, they cannot be dismissed. They are actually really huge powerhouses.
They need to make a big play. He needs to make a big play with the Banshees right here, right now. He's starting the 3rd command center at 11 minutes and 25 seconds. This is disgustingly late. If you're trying to play any sort of economic style, you are absurdly far behind. But the Banshees run in and they run straight into Queens with no detection here. This is a really, really nice move because if he can push the Queens away, he can play with the range. The Spore Crawler can't cover the entire mineral line. All it gives is detection, and the Queen has to try to stay leashed to that Spore Crawler for defense.
Yep, great harass coming in here from ForGG as there's right now only 2 Queens on the field. I mean, this is the big problem dealing with the I guess anti-all-in follow-up as
I do like this a lot. ForGG picking off those Queens does a great deal to slow down the tech, the injects. He only has 1 Queen on the map right now. He has 3 in production, but ForGG also recognizes that killing this Roach Warren pre-lair means that road speed isn't a factor. So when he gets these factories up, he can go straight into Thor production since he already has enough Hellbats to deal with Lings. ForGG, by killing the Roach Warren and all these Queens, has prevented the possibility from there being a big enough swell of ground units to punish him for playing, as greedy as possible. Because honestly, that's the only way ForGG is going to have a chance at this game from this point onward.
I think so. And wow, look at this, killing another Queen. Maybe he gets
He's really abusing the fact that Sen plays with the late tech.
There's only 1 Queen on the field, and 2 more Banshees are going to pop in. It's very likely that Sen loses his natural right here. if 4GG actually just committed.
Oh, he repositioned
my
the
gosh.
score! And now he's like, okay, well, you know, I'm paying attention, buddy. It's not going to be that easy. Keep in mind, 2 more Banshees are still coming up, so these guys can run over to the other base where there are only one queen to defend, and now 2 more Banshees show up here.
And this isn't looking good for this upcoming hatchery. Now, more damage at the 3rd base. This is what I was talking about. These Banshees just do so much damage so fast, and against a Roach style where there's no imminent type of anti-air, it's looking bad. The hatchery at the natural.
I mean, killing this hatchery, I think, is crucial. He definitely has to get this with the Mutalisk's about to finish. Just give a little tap.
Tappy tap.
Oh, another Banshee shows up, but gets caught here.
4GG not paying attention.
Well, the mutas are about to come out. The mutas are about to come out. He needs to get that hatchery. Okay, he does pick it off. The mutas are coming out, so all these Banshees should die very quickly. They're all very close to each other. This will be a little bit nice because Sen can basically just swat all these down. They didn't have many hit points to begin with. 4GG will try to save one of them. Sen took a base in the top left during all of this, but 4GG is going to try to secure this 3rd. There is a Ling blocking it. He needs to get this 3rd right now.
Yep.
He has 2 Thors and 2 more reasonably close to finishing.
4GG also has a timing right now based on all the damage that he did. He has to know, okay, you're on 2 base for quite a long time. That means we're kind of equalized. Well, my mech is slightly better than you, especially since you've gone Spire Tech while I've gotten Thors. So the Roach count is going to be really tiny. In about 1 or 2 minutes, or actually like 100 seconds, because that's how long it takes the hatchery to pop up again, you should be pushing out or getting ready a push to actually punish Zerg, just because there's a gigantic timing for you to take advantage. Look at the supplies, 127 to 101. That's evidence of the timing push existing because of the factory, the 5 factories that were made.
Yeah, 4GG has an incredible amount of Hellbats. This means that even if he was to get a reasonable modicum of Roaches, he's got a great buffer. The Banshees will deal very well with those at the same time. And if the Mutalisks don't choose to engage at the same time as the Roaches, then the Thors can also dedicate their very high damage output to those ground forces. With the +2 attack, keep in mind, 4GG's Thors will 2-shot Mutalisks, since I do not not believe there's a Carapace upgrade for those.
Correct. And that's why it gets so scary to actually go for the Spire Tech when you don't know your opponent is actually going mech for sure. It looks like he's going to try to push in, but this is such a meekly force.
The fact that 4GG runs his Hellbats away from the Thors is just his ultimate way of saying, I'm really comfortable. I don't think you're going to kill me with Roaches. And I do believe that he's overextending a bit here. He's really taking his chances. The Mutas have mostly been cleaned up now, so it's just Thors versus Roaches. He does have Hellbats fighting Roaches in the natural, too.
It's just looking so great for 4GG. How do you actually get to those Thors? And even 4GG did like a macro version of this. He could have easily thrown down a lot of SCVs with this attack, knowing that Banelings probably aren't, they could exist, but still, like, you could put a lot more pressure with this same force and probably win the game a lot more decisively.
Yeah. The fact that 4G is rallying across the map with mech units, it just kind of shows how comfortable he feels in this position. He slowed down the Roach follow-up from the Mutalisks enough by killing that Roach Horn, by killing that hatchery, by killing so many queens to prevent the injects to actually get the units out that you need to stop this push, that he was able to make a push that otherwise is really, really ballsy. And frankly, this type of attack shouldn't work in a normal game unless you've done a critical amount of damage to your opponent.
That's right. And this is the 4GG we expected. GG pops out, and 4GG will tie up the series 1-1. Now, it looked a little bit risky.
It was a bit. It was a bit of a hairy opening. When you play only 2 command centers, you know, I talked about how players like Bunny use that build. Bunny does it off 3 command centers. Yes. He doesn't take that chance, and you know, for that reason alone, it usually hits later. But Sen wisely got his Roach Horn early enough to be able to deal with it. Very smart from 4GG to realize that he could open up the door for his attack by doing that, and then defending the counter push. Like this was so much resources for Sen because he doesn't start his lair until after this fails.
Yeah, this is just gorgeous, man. I mean, a lot of times I think lesser players will just get obliterated from this because it's Roaches versus Hellbats, you know? And of course there's one Banshee on the top here, but the back and forth micro, the repairing, and then of course just the Cool Collect 4GG that we know is able to take out this force pretty nicely here.
It takes some really heavy numbers for Roaches. Like Hellbats actually beat Roaches 1v1 on even upgrades, so you need to have more Roaches and a little bit of kiting mixed in. By having the SCVs and the Banshees on top of it, breaking him was going to be impossible without those Banelings hitting every single Hellbat.
But let's be honest, the 2 Banshees were like game winners right there.
Yeah, I mean, sniping that hatchery was huge. He saw everything too. He saw the Spire by killing the Roach Horn and seeing when the new Roach Horn was coming. Like having that Roach speed, everything's so late. Like just the injects and the Roach transition being hurt so much was that was a game-winning move. These Banshees did an absurd amount of damage, and because of how late the lair was, there was nothing he could do other than play with these queens.
Yep.
And the Banshees having +1 helped a lot too during this.
To defend something like this, you need to throw down like 2 Spore Crawlers in each base. That's 600 minerals.
Yeah.
But it's still cheaper than losing like
the
7 queens. Right?
Yeah.
Because like, yeah, 7 queens, a hatchery, or it was some absurd
15
number.
15 drones.
15 drones.
Nothing,
Good God.
nothing went right in this game for Sen after he made a pretty reasonable defense, to be honest. Once the Banshees showed up, it was, sometimes you talk about strategies that make sense. Frankly, a Banshee transition after a push like that, because it didn't do damage, I can see you want to try something else, but he was already premeditating that Banshee switch. That's a bit reckless, but the only reason why I feel it worked so well is because it made very little sense from a normal perspective. You expect the Terran to transition and expand after a push like that.
I think he's playing with the meta, though, a lot, because, again, nobody does something like that. Nobody goes for that frontal push, goes for the drop, and then continues it up with Cloak Banshees, because it delays your stim timings, it delays your factory timings, it delays your third base from popping up. That was a really late third, as we were talking about before. The opportunity cost was to get those gases and to get the Banshees out. Like, all these things cost a ton of money, and it affects your economy, it affects your production a lot. But if you're able to make good use of those units that are popping out, you get games like what we just saw with ForGG dominating his opponent from mid-game on.
Yeah, that's a sign of experience from ForGG, knowing how he can play with certain situations where he's like, yeah, I'm going mech, but I don't really need to beat these roaches with tanks. Thors have the firepower. He doesn't have enough Mutalisks to actually contest me. And the +2 attack, like the extra volley that the Thors would need to kill Mutas, especially if they try to spread them out, is enough that those roaches could have maybe killed one extra Thor and half the hit points on another. And when you're trying to hold in a situation that close, that is a potentially game-winning upgrade to have. But to make that roach switch so fast, he couldn't afford to open Carapace with those Mutas.
Nope.
Whether Carapace would have even been done by that time.
Yeah, I don't think generally... I think it was also like a lack of looking at his opponent's base. I mean, you can kind of assume Hellbats are intended for going mech, but a lot of times it could just be like, oh, well, you know that I'm going roaches, so you have to keep going Hellbats, or you have to keep going some unit of substance to defend against this incoming push. So I'm not sure if Sen 100% read that it was mech or he was on cruise control. Because sometimes Zergs will do that, and it's like, oh, it's bio. I know I'm just going to get my Mutas up, and then Zergling Baneling up, and it just felt a little bit confusing. Well, losing your hatchery is also very confusing, too.
Well, it disrupts everything, because even if you're rebuilding the queens, like, okay, you're retaking that base, but you're not injecting it, And all those drones were on their way to mine in the northwest, but that base finishes, and there's not immediately a queen there either. So the injects also make a big hand in that, in terms of trying to recover as you gather those resources. And ForGG didn't even at any point in that game see the 4th base, by the way. He was just like, yeah, I'm pretty sure I can kill you.
Doesn't matter, yeah. We do move on to Coda, and Coda is a very interesting map overall. I think a lot of people...
It's pretty good. Most people seem to like it.
In favor of?
Well, I haven't heard many people... I thought that it would be favored for Terran against Protoss, and yesterday Huck told me, he's like, well, I mean... Coda's not the worst map for PvT, so I haven't heard Zergs complain too much. I guess on mech, if you take the center position with Terran against Zerg, mech is very strong, but you're also way open to counterplays on your flanks. From the games that I've played on this, I like it against Zerg and Protoss as Terran.
I think it's one of our staples, our standard maps for sure, but overall I think I have to agree with you. Just like the options that exist on Coda for Terran, like the drop options exist. There's chasms where you could just...
It's a decent Reaper map too.
It's definitely so. You can always scout out your opponent. You're not going to be susceptible to cheese, whereas Zerg also has good Overlord spots for them to put their Overlords and scout out your entire base.
Yeah,
so
very true.
A lot of things are very explicit, I think, on this map rather than a map like, let's say, Vani Research Station, which you can hide a lot of stuff.
I mean, I like Vani too. But
I do too.
But Coda gets my stamp of approval for the new maps that have come out this season. I do like it quite a bit with Echo. And we are loaded in, ladies and gentlemen, to the final map of our second series here at the World Championship Series Premier League Group B. We'll be playing on Coda. And this should be a pretty good finish to this series. I think it'll be a pretty reasonable upset if our our Zerg player was able to topple ForGG.
Nate, not for me though.
Not for you. Well,
Not for me.
you just knew everything in advance, Retorb.
It's true. I cheated a little bit.
You used a crystal ball to look into the future. I don't think that's allowed in WCS rules. In the top left position of Coda, we have the Red Terran player representing Team Millennium. Tied 1-1. He's ForGG.
And his opponent in the bottom right-hand corner, as the blue Zerg, it is Hong Kong Attitude Sen. All right, so standard play is the ordinary thing so far. I like that we saw the depot, not the depot, the spawning pool first in game number 1, but I think it's pretty safe to go for the hatchery first. From
Sen after winning the first game, I think Sen was feeling much more comfortable moving into game 2. ForGG is the kind of guy that will most often 2-racks if he's up 1-0.
Yes.
In a 1-1 situation, it doesn't make too much sense against an opponent that's already open pool first once in the series, whereas Sen might be like, okay, I can't be as confident as I was in the last game. It was a little bit, a little bit my mistakes by having the tech so late, even when I knew this was a very dedicated push. But ForGG, I think the best way to play this is just try to grind it out. Try not to make the same mistakes that he made in game 1, because honestly, that mistake in the engagement was what lost ForGG the first map. Everything else he did was very smooth. Sen's late tech style is something that ForGG can abuse with fast drop play, with Banshee play, and I think it's something he should abuse for that reason alone.
Yeah. If you look at where ForGG has been taking advantage of Sen, it's actually in like the meta switches, the Hellion pushes into the main base on game number 1, the Banshee in game number 2. It hasn't been like execution.
Yeah, it's been punishing Sen's greed,
yes.
and just, to lay it out there. That's what the 4th base is. It's very greedy to get your 4th base before you get your tech up, and he did it both games. In the first game, he got punished by the drone losses, and he managed to recover because ForGG, like we said, took that bad fight. And in the second game, he got punished by just straight up dying because he didn't have what he needed to deal with the Banshees.
Yep. So I'm really interested to see how ForGG actually slightly adjusts his build to be able to deal with Sen yet again and be able to get slightly ahead. Obviously, this overload coming in here is so helpful for Sen because it tells him how many Reapers are capable of popping out here. That actually tells you...
Yeah. Seeing the reactor on the way tells him that this is all he has to worry about. Just 1 Reaper. It won't be 2 or 3, and this means he did only build 4 Zerglings, so... He basically saves a drone there. Of course, this is, this is where things get a bit racy, but now he has the queens. He's not really worried anymore.
Not at all. Not at all. And pretty standard play coming out from both players so far, but ForGG has been like phenomenal with these Reapers, man. Like
with 1 Reaper opening, I think killing a single drone, if you keep the Reaper alive, is a pretty big victory. Like, it's the same as against Protoss. If you only build 1 Reaper, then you're happy to get any worker kills, because mostly it's only possible to get scouting information off that.
That's right. The purpose of the Reaper is to look at the metabolic boost timing. That tells a lot of what's going on. And he was able to see kind of the gas count, exactly what his opponent is capable of. Sometimes you don't go metabolic boost as you don't go gas at all as Zerg, and there's a lot of punishing builds that you can do. It tells you how offensive you can be. It tells you how the Zerg is actually going to start to move into mid-game. But nice pick-off right there.
That's a really, really big thing to do. When the Zerg does this, they are sacrificing an inject to get that out there, to have those creep tumors, and picking that off very early on because creep spread is like, as the game goes on and you add more active tumors, it kind of grows like exponentially.
Yeah.
But now he has to restart from square one, which in this game is an even bigger deal because ForGG has lined himself up to do the exact same thing that he did in the last game.
That's right, and I don't think that Sen has been able to scout this out just yet. He does have an Overlord in position, but I like the Reaper positioning over here from ForGG to be able to see an Overlord coming in and then properly position his Marines. But for sure, Sen needs to get in here and see, is this a command center or is this further tech? And he could definitely do it, but it's still very hard. Do we have a Roach Warren? No, we don't have a Roach Warren.
All he has is speed, and you know what? No Baneling Nest either. This is the kind of push that could kill Sen this game. He needs to start a Spine at least. He's queued 1 up, but it should be done in time.
Oh, he's doing
Kane
straight
style.
Across. He's doing Kane style. He's going 5 queens. He can actually add on 2 more queens to defend against this.
Kane's defended pushes like this reasonably well when he qualified against Pult in Season 1 by using a lot of queens, his queen posse as it were. But this is still a very difficult push to stop because if he doesn't get those transfuses down on the Spine Crawler, if he doesn't buffer enough for the Spine to actually deal damage, or if that Spine, for example, took some damage before it finished, it's still very, very difficult because Hellbats will burst it down in no time.
Well, here we go. We're going to find out right now as the Spine Crawler is going to start doing damage. I mean, there's a lot of Queens here. I really don't think that that Terran will be able to do too much.
Well, I mean, he got the Spine Crawler pretty easily, to be honest. The Zerglings come in, and they're dealing some damage. He's managed to kill all the Hellbats off, and it's still just Queens left. 2 more Hellions do show up. ForGG's not the kind of guy to give up easily.
Okay, if you target down the medevac, yeah, that stops a lot of the momentum.
He really needs to kill that medevac. The Queens are taking an absurd amount of damage, and oh goodness, only 2 Queens left. He's going to kill 1 Queen left. More Zerglings will come out, but he's done the same exact thing that he did in the last game, which is inhibit the production abilities. And over time, Sen's ability to actually inject and spend his resources will get even tougher, and also defending the Banshee follow-up.
I love the spores, man. I mean, it's the adjustment that we're seeing right now, and it will actually help out quite a bit.
Although
there's no
Queens can abuse the range anyway. Like,
There's
he doesn't have to be in range of the spore to hit the mineral line, and he still has Hellbats here at the same time.
Oh, man. Well, these Hellbats actually could do a lot of damage against these drones. They need to evacuate immediately. Additional Hellions are going to be streaming in here, but man, the defense was a little bit sloppy. He had the capabilities of defending that, but it was just like a little bit off, and now this Queen is going to pop out.
The Hellbats kill the Spore Crawler, so now the Banshee has free reign over the third base.
Man.
Like, what is Sen supposed to do on 2 bases? He's only now just started his lair, and we talked about this the whole series long. That's the biggest weakness of his strategy, was getting all these bases, getting all these drones, and not getting that tech up. He is so far away from Aspired.
That's a good surround. We'll be able to clear up the Hellbats, but there are additional Hellbats coming in from the main.
He's not going to stop. He has so much firepower. Kills the next building Spore down there. And even if he kills off all these Hellbats, he still has to worry about the follow-up. ForGG is going up right now to 4 command centers.
Oh my god. Wow.
To be fair, as cool of a move as this might be ForGG saying, "Oh, I was microing really hard."
Yeah,
and I was close
macroing.
It's sometimes cool. I don't know if ForGG commonly follows this up with 4 command centers. He probably just recognizes how massively far ahead he is. Even these Zerglings running across the map, there's not even a Baneling nest to try and bust ForGG with. He has Hellions behind a wall. That's all he needs to be perfectly safe.
Yeah, I think these Zerglings are more so to say, like, if you want to have Hellions or massive Hellbats stream into me, I'm going to stop it by being able to engage you before you actually turn into Hellbats. So he's trying to give him a little bit of space so that he can, you know, just stabilize at home a little bit better. But man, it's not looking good for Sen right now.
No, I mean, he clears up most of the creep. A Queen does plant down a tumor as the creep dissipates, so he'll keep some of it. This creep tumor is actually more important than it could maybe appear, because being able to move those Queens between the third and the natural is tantamount to defending it against a follow-up push. But look, ForGG has +2. Attack on the way for his mech. And what does Sen actually have his tech pointed towards? There's no Spire on the way, no Rotorn on the way, no Baneling nest on the way. He can only build Zerglings and Queens, and there are Thors and Vikings being built. With, of course, this Banshee support still being alive that he can never catch.
I do feel like the double command centers, though, hinders the Terran. Like, the biggest advantage that Terran had right there was like a huge timing at mid-game. Like, that's how you actually take your advantage a lot of the times, similar to game number 2 or last game. But by going the 4th command center, he's kind of, he doesn't give up his advantage, but he reduces it.
I think the 4th command center is just a product of him starting his gases on his natural late, because even if he wanted to spend the resources on something else, like, he could build an engineering bay, but there's no tech, so it's not necessary. He could see everything with his Banshees, so he knew it wasn't necessary. So I just guess, like, you know, ForGG's that guy.
Yeah,
it happens to Tasia too.
Yes,
but he doesn't play mech, so he can just build barracks. In which case, I agree with you 100%.
Well, you can see the problems of starting your production facilities so late. He actually went up to 1K, and it's because he just doesn't have enough production to start spending. So it actually puts out a timing if his opponent went for something like a Roach push. There definitely are capabilities. Sen actually taking a 4th base. Let's just take a look at the income tab. 62 harvesters to 54, so an advantage for Terran
with
right
that 4th command center, that extra mule is pretty sick. He's getting a 5th.
Yeah.
Might as well.
Why not, man? Why not?
It's like, well, this army takes a long time to build. I guess I'll get more stuff.
I mean, he could go up to like 8 command centers and then trade out all of his SCVs.
He wants to make the 190 supply mech push with only 10 SCVs mining gas.
I mean, 8 command centers is just about 3 base economy. that's what's crazy about it, man. Terran has the capabilities of going over into that very, very quickly. And you might as well, since you're kind of situating yourself for that. I mean, not necessarily go for 8, but
he's
don't
floating
SCV
his
up.
command center over right now. He's like, okay, yeah, let's just planetary my 4th base over here.
Okay.
I've got Hellbats watching for run-bys here. Roach speed came in too late to actually be a factor. It's going to be done reasonably soon, but now ForGG has a bit of a mech ball. He's got 2 Thors out. He has 3 Banshees, a 4th one about to finish, tanks on the way, building 4 Hellbats at a time. He has everything that he needs to just lock this game down, max out, and push, because even though there's a Roach Hydra transition coming in, there's no Infestation Pit. Well, actually, it just finished, so he's just now starting his Hive, but if he pushes at like 170 supply, there shouldn't be Vipers, and it should basically be as easy as attack moving him. Like, he just has too much of an advantage. The only thing that could give Sen an edge to win a fight against ForGG right now would be Blinding Clouds or Abducts.
Yep. And as you said, the 170 supply, I think, is going to hit right before that happens, especially if he doesn't... He's actually supply capped, unfortunately, right now.
Yeah,
so
he can just move out. You'd think with like 5 command centers, that's a bit tougher to happen, but he's going to... I still think that this push should be very difficult, borderline impossible to stop. If ForGG waited for more units, it would be unstoppable, but he's the kind of guy that likes to give chances with these early pushes. He rallied across the map with mech on the last one.
Yep. I mean, there's something to say also about these Banshees. The Banshees actually do a ton of damage dealing with this, and I've actually, well, we'll find out how well these Banshees will do right here as the first engagement is going to start.
They're parked on top of everything. You know, the Queens are actually shooting at the Vikings, and the Vikings are sniping the Overseers, so he actually can't target the Banshees. Just gets to fire free reign from above.
That's right, but the Roaches are clearing up a lot of the ground units here, and actually they might overpower the ground because the Banshees were actually going forward trying to target the Queens, but still looks like there's just too much firepower.
The Banshees turn around and give him that extra boost he needs to pick off the rest of the Roaches, and now moving into the natural expansion, this is where some of the tech is placed down. We have the Roach Horn over here. He kills that. He can build Hydralisks, and those don't have the hit points to actually tank for a fight against Mech.
And this isn't looking good for Sen very clearly, as he just has no response to the Banshee, and they just represent the bulk of denial in maintaining and keeping. And
the Banshee squad is one-shot Roaches, man. He's going ham. He's picked off the Queen at the natural, and he's trying to break a position that, frankly, is untouchable. 2 more starports were being finished for ForGG. He was already preparing to switch, adding on even more command centers. He's got everything he needs to wrap this up. He's up 60 supply with mech. And when you're building Roachling at 18 minutes in the game against a guy who's got the dozen command centers, you know you're not in a good place, Greetorp.
Definitely so. I mean, Sen's starting to kind of fight back on the ground. But these Banshees, if you look at all the kills and probably look at all the damage that they're really pushing out, that's what's really speaking volumes.
Some of these Banshees are at like 20-plus
21,
kills.
13, 7,
One's at
8.
26. And really
just unreal, man.
Yeah, the Banshees were super crucial in this game, just like they were in the last one because of the late tech.
Yep.
The late tech from Sen made him super vulnerable to all of this, and even though he's trickling out Roaches, he will never be able to kill the Banshees, and now that he's lost the Roach Horn, no more of those are going to come out, and ForGG is surprisingly still macroing behind this. He's building 5 Ghost Academies. He was going to nuke Sen to death if he had to.
GG gets called, and ForGG will move on into the winners. Sen down to the losers to face off against Stardust. Going to be a very, very interesting series for the next 2 ones.
Yeah, it gets pretty tricky, right? Because Stardust showed quite a bit of a struggle in the games that went longer. The macroing, the spending of resources. He had a pretty tough time. And against Sen, who went reasonably well toe-to-toe as far as the greed goes against ForGG, if Stardust doesn't go for any aggressive pushes and plays the long game out like he tried against Tudming, I'm actually quite worried for him against Sen.
Yeah, I mean, I think anything can happen, but when it comes down to it, Stardust looked more shaky than I think Sen did in the series. Actually, Sen looked pretty decent for game number 1. Game 2 and 3 definitely was a little bit weird, but I think the big eyebrow kind of raise is going to be on Stardust, as he is just super inconsistent as of late. And I don't know if it's his surroundings. I don't know if it's just his practice right now. He's in the same house as Violet. So it should be okay against a guy like Sen, but I don't know, man.
He's just getting back into the swing of things. 4GG now will go up against Tudming in the winners match. I believe we'll be doing the lower bracket match first, however. But those guys are playing. They're trying to get to the top 16 to play in Toronto. And like Smick said earlier, guys, we put another wave of tickets on sale today. If you are interested in going to see the season finals in Toronto, I believe from June 26th to June 28th, it's going to be awesome. Will be probably one of the best events you're going to go to this year if you can make it out for a StarCraft live event. The link below, esl.gg/WCS Toronto tickets. Make sure you check it out.
Yes, sir. I'll be there, hopefully. Hopefully. No,
Fingers
I'll probably be there for...
I'd be okay to have you there with me. We're ready to hear from the man himself, ForGG. He's up on the main stage with Smix.
Thank you very much, Nathanius. Congratulations, ForGG. 2-1 victory over Sen. Though, when I spoke to you before the match, you seemed very, very confident going up against him. So, were you surprised when you lost game 1?
Yes, because... Yeah, but I think Sen is very improved than season 1. But also I have a little bit nervous. And first game I have a lot of mistake and very bad.
Well, you were still thankfully able to win this first game, and a lot of people looking at this group actually have talked about how they think you're the favorite to come out and move on to the round of 16. So, do you feel a little bit more pressure because of that, or are you not thinking about that at all?
I feel very good because many people think I'm going to pass top 1. But also that makes me a little bit nervous. But I will crush Tuduming.
Well, you just said you'll crush Tuduming, and going back to when we spoke earlier, you said that the person that you're most worried about in this group was Stardust, and he's in the elimination match. So when you just said that you will crush Tuduming, do you think that you're just going to advance #1 in this group easy now?
Yeah, I didn't expect Stardust to lose first match, but he lost against Tuduming, and I give him chance to beat Tuduming again.
All right, well, thank you very much, ForGG. Best of luck in your next match. Coming up next, it will be the elimination match of Group B. It will be Stardust versus Sen to see who will drop out and who will have a chance to keep their Premier League dream alive. So keep your thoughts coming, guys. Hashtag WCS on social media, and we'll be back after this.
I move objects with my mind. I climb the tallest mountains and slay dragons. I defend my galaxy from ruthless aliens. I am never bored. I am stronger. I am faster. I am G1.